The answer lies in the heart of battle. And Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova Podcast. This is Kyle Hebert, the voice of Ryu from Street Fighter. Hadouken!
Hyped intro, cut 1.
Attention.
Turn it up and get ready.
Get ready. You're tuned into
the Mekel Kasanova Podcast.
Get your dance shoes on because is on.
And welcome everyone to another episode of the #1 rated podcast in the state of Hawaii, the Mekel Kasanova Podcast. I am your host, Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii's favorite content creator, coming at you with another amazing interview. And today I have the complete honor and privilege of interviewing the one, the only Mr. Mobile, who tells you to stay mobile, my friends, because this is the one and only Michael Fisher. And it's an honor to have him out here. I was able to interview him while he was here in Hawaii. And we're going to talk about tech, YouTube, and more. So if you're ready to do it, I'm ready to do it. Let's go ahead and get into this episode. All right, and welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Mekel Kasanova Podcast. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova, and I have with me the one, the only, the amazing Mr. Mobile, aka Michael Fisher.
Mekel, thank you for having me. You are far too kind. Anyone who doesn't know me already, I'm not that cool, but thank you so much.
So how's it going, man? Give us an introduction and plug your channel and everything you're working on.
Sure, it's just going very well. I'm broadcasting from Maui. Sorry about the little echo in my hotel room here, but we're just coming off the Qualcomm Tech Summit, which I think we'll talk about in a second. But I run a YouTube channel called Mr. Mobile. It's at the Mr. Mobile on YouTube, where I review consumer technology, specifically mobile stuff. So whether it's a smartwatch or a smartphone or a laptop or an electric car or a hydrogen car. Oh, I started doing those recently, and they're a lot of fun. I cover as much mobile technology as I possibly can. And I've been doing that for about 2.5 years under the Mr. Mobile name.
Awesome. And, speaking of the Mr. Mobile name, how did you come up with that?
The Mr. Mobile name was when I had been reporting on tech for a long time at a site called Pocket Now, and they're still doing very well under Jaime Rivera and now Josh Vergara and other folks. And I had just been Michael Fisher at Pocket Now. So when we just decided to crank up Mr. Mobile at my new home at Mobile Nations, we knew we needed a brand name. And I will tell you this, we sat in a conference room in Winnipeg for, I think, 8 hours going through names. This was one of the days of building Mr. Mobile. Mr. Mobile was the placeholder name thought up by the man who I launched this channel with, Kevin Mitchell, who was Crackberry Kevin, for old listeners who followed tech. And it was just a placeholder. It was just a thing that, all right, we're going to call it Mr. Mobile just so we have something to call this. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, that perfectly encapsulates everything I want to touch. It's broad enough that I can cover watches and cars in addition to phones. Mm-hmm. And once you live in the UK, it's not confusing. I do get a lot of folks in the UK saying, "Why are you bothering me with cars? You're Mr. Mobile, phones only." And I'm like, no. So anyway, that's the long version of it. And I just I thought it was tacky at first. But when people started asking me in public, like at Starbucks, "Are you Mr. Mobile?" I'm like, "Oh, thank God. Thank you for recognizing me. And also, I can't believe you. Do you like the name? Good. Oh, good. I like it."
That's awesome. It's kind of like when I came up with actually, I didn't even come up with the name Mekel Kasanova.
I was just going to ask you about it. Yeah, what's the story there, man?
So my real name's Mekel James. But the thing is, when I was in my 20s, I used to go out. I used to be MC for one of the radio stations out here, 104.3. I used to do a lot of club promotions and whatnot, and people just started remembering me like when I started this podcast like a year ago. So people would ask me when they run up to me and they're like, man, I remember your first name was Mekel, but what was the last name? And I'm like, and then I started with the K, right? Kasanova. And I was getting that from everyone. I'm like,
really?
Yeah. I was like, how did that come up with, how'd you come up with Kasanova? And they're like, yeah, because, you were the Playboy. I'm like, I was the MC. I'm like, when was I a Playboy? And they were like, no, you were that guy with the girl that would leave all the time. I'm like,
oh, okay.
I'm like, sure, why not? And so I just started running with it because, I work for a hospital, so I do have to keep like a separation of, because, they check what you do. So I'm like,
yeah, of course. They're always bugging into your socials and stuff and making sure you're not, not in too much trouble, I guess.
So it's kind of funny because they'll be like, hey, Mekel, do you have any social media? I'm like, no.
No, I don't.
So.
That's awesome, man. It's a really memorable name. And I love the intro at the top of the show, by the way. I listened to a couple of the old episodes and I was like, yeah, this reminds me of the very best of drive time radio.
I'm shocked at how it's come to be what it is in the last year. I really didn't think it would grow to the point where like I'm interviewing you. I just wrapped up the other day interviewing
voiceover guy.
Yeah, the voice of Ryu, the voice of M. Bison. I just interviewed Game Informer's executive editor Andrew Rayner. It's crazy. I'm getting to the point now where I have people like, hey, I'd love to be on your show, and I'm like, cool. And I've got like so many interviews at this point. I've got at least 3 months worth of interviews, and I'm just.
Isn't that fantastic? And after only a year, right? It's fun because when you launch something new, you're not assured of success.
Yeah.
So the first couple times you'll get people actually saying, hey, proactively out of nowhere, like, hey, I'd like to come on your show, or can you review this? It's like, oh wow, this is working. Oh, thank God, right?
Right.
Thinking it's like, oh man, that's nobody cares. I'm invisible until that starts happening, and then it's so gratifying.
It really is. Like I just never thought it would be what it is. I'm like, hey, this is a fun ride, fun gig.
Yeah. Oh man, I wish you a great success in the future. It's pretty cool to be on. So thanks for having me, man.
Thank you. And speaking of which, like, what are some triumphs and challenges that you've encountered on your YouTube and tech journey?
I think from a YouTube perspective, the thing that comes to mind when you say triumph is just having a successful YouTube channel, a tech YouTube channel in 2018, which is really tough. I think when a lot of people email me and ask, for advice because they want to start their own YouTube tech channel, my first thing is like, yo, we started Mr. Mobile in 2016, and if I'd been doing it by myself, I guarantee you I would not be as successful. Like, there was a massive amount of very smart people behind me at Mobile Nations helping me devise this concept from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And even in 2016, I felt like, guys, are we too late? Should we be trying to do this? Because trying to penetrate that segment, it's so saturated. There are so many people on YouTube trying to do this exact same thing. And I think the only thing that I will say, like, yeah, here's a triumph, is that Mr. Mobile still exists and is doing as well as we do in terms of the subscribers and the people who watch. And in terms of challenges, like, I think the thing that's been the biggest hurdle in 2018 has been the YouTube landscape is changing in tech. Mm-hmm. And the audience is rightly questioning people a lot more because the influencer side of YouTube has grown tremendously. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of confusion between people who will attend a tech event or to attend a launch thing and say like, hey, they just launched this phone here at this thing and I'm partnering with them, I'm working with them to show you it, isn't it cool? There seems to be a bit of a disconnect. The audience can't always necessarily tell the difference between that and, hey, they sent me a device to review, they're not paying me, and they don't get to see this copy and approve it before I get it to your eyes, so I'm reviewing it. So, there's a lot of ambiguity, mm-hmm. and it's not always easy to tell when you're being told the truth. And I don't, it's a longer conversation, and I don't mean to cast aspersions on anyone. It's just confusing right now.
Yeah.
And that confusion is probably the biggest challenge I've had to overcome on all sides of it this year. It's tough.
I know I get a lot of that too, because I do a lot of video game reviews, and I'll get copies, like codes or physical copies, sent to me, and
right.
I get the question a lot, like, are you being paid to say this is good? And I'm like, no. And I understand now why it's important to state at the beginning of your video, why it was, or that it was provided to you. And I'm like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah. No, totally. And the problem is, I think previously, a couple of years ago, people were always rolling up in the comments. If you're too enthusiastic about a Samsung smartwatch, the people are just like, how much did Samsung pay you? And if you reviewed it poorly and said, no, you shouldn't buy this, it's too broken, they'll be like, how much did Apple pay you to hate on Samsung stuff? So that tribalism has always been there, right? That's just never going to go away. Now, though, I find it harder to discount those questions, because really that is what is happening. People are, last year, I'll give you an example. I'm here at the Qualcomm Tech Summit, right? Mm-hmm. This year, I'm just here as press. I'm regular media. I'm covering it. There's no, they flew us out here and they put us up in a hotel. That's the extent of the compensation offered to the media at these kind of things. Last year, though, I was like a partner with Qualcomm. So, I was paid a fee to interview, at the time, the head of the Snapdragon business unit. Mm-hmm. I've always said I won't put that kind of content on Mr. Mobile's channel, but if you want to hire Mr. Mobile to do an interview for you that you run on your channel, that's totally fine. It was a fine interview and it was great, but at the same time, it wasn't my favorite thing to do. Mm-hmm. You have an arrangement like that. The difference is like, well, you're only allowed to ask certain questions, right? Yeah. So that's the difference, and it's subtle, and you have hashtag ad, and you have all these disclosures, the FTC mandates, but it's like the fact that kind of content coexists with the regular earned media type of content, it's resulted in a landscape that has too much ambiguity, and as a result, people's trust is going down on YouTube. And I don't blame the audience for asking those questions, and I get tired of answering the question a lot, but I will always do it because we need more clarity in this space. Yeah.
So what have been like your go-to devices, your daily drivers and the why? I know you recently did a video speaking on that, but for the audience that may not have seen it, like I saw the BlackBerry you had.
Bam. Right there. Yeah. What do you think about it? The BlackBerry Key 2.
I'm really interested in getting that for work because I'm currently, I haven't upgraded my phone. I'm still on the Note 8. I was actually debating between the Razer phone 2 just because of the RAM, but at the same time, I do have to take a lot of notes, and I don't use the stylus as much as I thought I would on the Note. So I've been thinking about the Key 2.
Man, here's the thing. Like, anytime someone asks me what I carry, I'm like, I will tell you and we can talk about it, but you have to understand that we, as tech YouTube people, and this, we exist, we're so much different. Our lifestyle is so much different from anyone else because I have a new phone coming to my office almost every week to review. So my second phone, I always carry two, and my second one is usually a review device. And usually that review device has a pretty good camera and has pretty good other features and a big screen that the BlackBerry does not. So I carry the Key 2 for a lot of reasons, nostalgia, because I like weird stuff, because I like to be different, all these dumb reasons. But it's because I carry a second phone. So I never recommend that people emulate our choices as YouTubers, because we're not living normal tech lives, right? Yeah. But what I keep coming back to, and people here in Hawaii always have been asking me all week, it's like, oh, you're still carrying that Key 2? I thought you just made that joke on Instagram and like it was a thing. I'm like, no, I really do. And it's because, dude, my first smartphone was a BlackBerry. And I always remember that feeling of physical keys under my thumbs. Yeah, I'm not faster on this keyboard. I'm not more accurate on it. I just find it more satisfying. That's really all there is to it. So if you type a lot on your phone and you are tired of typing on glass, get it. Awesome. Don't get it for any other reason.
Awesome. I think I'll probably go, I might go pick one up today, or at least I'll go try it. Because, I do a lot of, especially for spreadsheets, I actually have to use Excel on my phone a lot. So I'm thinking, that would be really good for that.
Get it and put it through its paces, man. It runs a mid-tier processor. It has plenty of RAM, and actually it hasn't slowed down over time like the Key 1 did for me. But Android still doesn't always expect that physical keyboard to be there, and I don't use Excel at all. And I remember there were some challenges at launch, at least. The Android Central guys pointed it out. Definitely try it. Use your review period. But make sure you give it at least 7 days, because that's how long it took me to get reused to a physical keyboard again. I actually had calluses on my thumbs.
I'm trying to think, when's the last time I had a BlackBerry? I want to say it's been about close to 10 years, 9 years or so, or maybe 10 years for me.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, that's when they sort of peaked, 07, 08. So yeah. Come on back to the family; it'll be fun.
So, speaking of the Tech Summit, like, how was it? The Tech Summit in Maui, and did you get to go to any luau's or events so far?
Yeah, it was good. I apologize. I don't usually do sunglasses on a video, but we've been hanging out late, so my eyes are a little got some under eye bags that I'm not very proud of.
Plus the time difference too.
Yeah, a little bit of jet lag. We went to a luau last night, but it was wonderful. It's always excellent to come here. I think this is a rather magical place. I've only been to Hawaii twice. But, I think there's a certain artificiality to being in a resort or a hotel, like a big chain hotel. There's not a lot of authenticity in any part of it. So I'm really looking forward to taking a drive tomorrow with Josh Vergara, with David Kogan, with Enabong Ete, a bunch of other YouTubers, and we're all friends. So we're getting together and exploring Maui outside the resort zone. We did last year and just had so much fun. So that's the extent of my Hawaii so far. The Tech Summit itself has been great. Qualcomm invites us here, and in addition to being in a beautiful place, you get to literally hold the chip that's going to be powering every flagship smartphone released in America pretty much next year. And you get to get a preview of what they're promising it can do. And Qualcomm's pretty good at this stuff. I mean, some of this, sometimes it doesn't work out, but most of the time they're like, hey, you'll be able to, you'll be able to shoot video in 4K HDR and now apply bokeh effects and stuff. Got to try that in the real world, because I haven't seen a portrait photo I've liked in a long time. And video, oh my God. But it's fun to see them push boundaries and try these new things. And it's really cool to talk to the engineers who make that happen. So it's been fun.
Awesome. Well, if you ever get the chance, definitely come over to Oahu. There's a lot to see here. I'm not sure what kind of food you like. If you like ramen, there's this place called Agu Ramen. Fantastic. It's like Agu Ramen. You get I'll have to send you pictures of a full course meal, and it's simply amazing. I think for one person, you're probably paying anywhere from $20 to $25 for a whole. You get a big old bowl of ramen. You get tonkatsu. You also get gyoza and a bunch of other things too. It's simply, and it's a little hole in the wall. You never know it's there.
I was just going to ask that. It's out of the way place, because those tend to be the best in my view. We thought we were going to a hole in the wall. My friend Josh took us to In the Kitchen last trip. They have this some spam dish. I don't remember what it was, and it was like, this is kind of a little strip mall. What if this will be tiny? You walk in and it's kind of a cool place, but there's a casual vibe and stuff. So I think we're heading back there. I will ask you to send me the link to the other place in case I make it to Oahu at some point.
Definitely, I'll definitely sing you that. So when it comes to becoming okay, let me rephrase the question. Sorry, I got a little too excited.
That's all right.
What goes into becoming a tech YouTuber? What does one need to do to set themselves apart from the pack of other tech YouTubers? Because like you said, it's super oversaturated. I'm seeing that myself with video game reviews, and it's what do you do? How do you brand yourself? Because I think branding is definitely important.
It absolutely is, yeah. I think that the branding is critical, but not as critical as the content itself, I think in a space like YouTube, you have a lot of people doing the same sort of content. As a matter of fact, I think it was Evan Rogers a year or two ago at Engadget who made a video that was basically like, why are all tech YouTube reviews the same? And he cut together like 12 of us into the same video, and it just, we're all saying the same thing. But what I think, and you may have mentioned this, but what I think that video misrepresents is how important the subtle differences between each YouTuber are. YouTube is not a space where people go generally to say, well, what does my favorite publication say about this? Like, there are exceptions. The Verge does very well with their video reviews and stuff. Mm-hmm. But YouTubers, tech YouTubers who are successful, I think, are successful because people have developed an affinity for their personalities. People tune in because they want to see what Marquez has to say about something, not just because they want to see what the Red Hydrogen 1 can do. People tune in because they want to see Zach destroy at Jerry Rig Everything, destroy a BlackBerry. They don't want to just see anyone destroy a BlackBerry because Zach, he's their trusted source for that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think if there's advice in that way, it's like, don't do what everyone else is doing. You cannot do that and succeed. And try to inject as much of yourself into the content as possible, because that's what people want. They want to make a friend, and they want a friend who's going to show up every week in their sub box with more content. And that's not easy to do. But I think a lot of people just try to emulate what's already out there, and they're missing that the key ingredient is that they themselves are the secret sauce. You know what I mean?
The you and YouTube, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I should have said that.
And I also want to ask, like, when it comes to filming footage, like, is it imperative to film YouTube videos in 4K with HDR or 1440, or is 1080 still fine?
I don't think so. I mean, I got a couple people, in my comments saying when I will put up a full HD video because I'm on the road or whatever, they'll be like, no 4K, thumbs down. And I'm like, okay. But those comments are so few and far between. I really think it depends on the audience. My audience cares more about what I'm covering and how I'm talking about it than, how crispy the image is, or whether it's in a 2:1 aspect ratio or stuff. People don't come to me for that. People go to other places for that, and those other places do it way better than I can, man. People don't tune into me necessarily for the cinematography.
Okay. And, why don't we see many 4K phones? What is your take on the new genre also of the gaming phones from like Razer and Asus? Like, is there a space or market for the 4K phones and the gaming phones?
Yeah, not for 4K phones. No, I don't think so. I've used them. Sony fans are pretty much the only people I see in the comments arguing for 4K phones. I've used them. Mm-hmm. I guess they look great. I cannot tell the difference. You put a Quad HD phone in one hand, you put a 4K phone in the other hand, and I'm sitting here like, I've got great eyesight. I cannot tell the difference. More important to me is like, HDR support in displays, contrast levels, saturation, how bright it gets outdoors. I could name 17 things that are more important than 4K in your hand. I really don't think most people can tell, and it tends to be a waste of power. And on top of that, even on a Quad HD phone, you pull it out of the box, and half the time the system is downscaling it to full HD anyway, or half, whatever the intermediate step is, just to save on battery life. Because rendering a 4K image, it takes a lot of power.
Awesome.
For something that you can't even see. So no, throw it out the door. I don't need a 4K phone in my life. Gaming phones, though, fun. I'm reviewing the ROG phone right now.
Nice.
And yeah, I covered it. I'm doing a 2-part coverage on it because at the time they sent me the phone, they had not yet sent me the dual view, display dock thing, which is this crazy clamshell Nintendo Switch sort of thing. And I love what companies like Asus have done with this because they're bringing peripherals into the conversation. And do you game on mobile a lot?
Occasionally. There are some games that EA will send me to play test, and I'm just not a mobile gamer.
Same. So that's why I ask, right? And why is that for you? Because for me, it's like I don't like tapping on glass. It's not satisfying when I'm gaming.
No, that's exactly what it is for me. It's like I need controls. Like if I'm going to play mobile, I have my Nintendo Switch. So
same. Yes, exactly right. Right. But that's why I like stuff like this. Like the Razer Phone 2 is a great device, and I reviewed it rather favorably, and I quite like it. But Asus really brought the heat in terms of like, we're going to build a whole hardware ecosystem for this phone. So you can use it as a phone, and then when you want to go hardcore gaming, you can plug it into this, and you've got physical triggers and air triggers as well, and like dual screens, and you can stream on Twitch while you're playing a game and stuff like that. I love that it's trying to elevate mobile gaming to a level where someday I might be interested. I will say this is way too early, and no games can take advantage of it right now. But it's like an aspirational device, you know? It's driving the future of mobile gaming, I say. And Razer, to their credit, they're doing it too. They have peripherals. They're just not ready yet, which I find rather confusing, but they're not going after quite the same market as the Asus ROG phone.
All right. Winding down to the last couple questions I have. When with phones becoming increasingly expensive, like hitting well over $1,000 for a smartphone, do you think that this is going to become a norm outside of Apple and Samsung? And I guess you could also include Red in there too with their Red Hydrogen 1. Or is this kind of just a new category, the luxury phone?
I hope it doesn't become the new normal. I mean, look, component costs are rising. There is trade pressure now that we have this sort of trade war going on. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that pushes prices up. And I'm not an economist, so I could very well be wrong, but a big part of me just thinks that so many companies see now, Apple has proven that people will pay $1,000 for a phone, and they're taking advantage of that. I think some $1,000 phones are worth it. It would be my argument that the Note 9, even though it's now discounted to below that, was worth it at $999 when it debuted, or whatever it debuted at. But they're so few and far between, and the reason the Note 9 earned that was because it can do everything. It can do anything you throw at it, and then some stuff you haven't even thought of. But look, we have OnePlus launching the 6T at $549, and my God, that phone is great at that price point. Is the camera as good? No. As a Pixel? No. But it's a $250 difference. It's a $200 or $300 difference to the cheapest current iPhone, right? So like, you can still do this. Companies can still push out great products at lower price points, and I don't see any reason why the regular person should feel the need to spend $1,000 or $40 a month for 2 years, just to get a good phone experience. I find it objectionable. And I will give credit to Michael Josh at Gadget Match for opening my eyes to that. He created a video a number of months ago saying like, hey, it's kind of BS that phones are $1,000 now because you're just pricing out poor people from great experiences. And I was like, whoa, I wasn't that outraged at the time, but I got to thinking about the message. I'm like, yeah, man, so it's important to me that people know that you can spend $500 and get a really great phone. And now with companies like Nokia, you can spend $300 and get a pretty darn good phone, Yeah. They're still out there.
All right. And, we often hear people say that they themselves are power users. Would you mind explaining what that is? And do you think a lot of people fall into that category? I think you and I do.
I don't know. You're going to have to explain to me what that is. I don't know. I'm guilty of it too, man. Like we have to have this shorthand when we're talking tech, right? Where it's just like, oh yeah, Note 9, the phone for power users. And no one really, it's like the average consumer or the average customer. It doesn't really exist. We're all different, right? But we all use these terms of shorthand. To me, a power user is somebody who's like, maybe it's best defined as who the opposite of a power user is. Like the person who's like, hey, what phone do you have? And you're just like, oh, it's this. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And they don't care, right? Yeah. It's a utility. The people who just want to buy something because it's easy and they don't really, if they could get through life without owning a phone, they would. It's a necessity. The power user is the opposite in my eyes. It's a person who is like, oh man, I'm going to use this for everything as much as I can, and I'm going to nerd out about it and talk about it on internet forums with other phone nerds. Mm-hmm. That's what I did well before I got into this space, man. I was hanging out on Howard forums in like 2002 talking about Samsung A500s and, hacking, whatever. Not hacking. So I think that's it. I think a power user is just a geek who now has the spending power to buy a very expensive phone and explore every single nook and cranny of it.
Nice.
Yeah, and God bless them. I love that kind of power user. That's my definition.
All right. So my last question to you is, when it comes to filming content, like for the average content creator or YouTuber, what camera would you recommend them using? A smartphone camera? Because I know smartphone cameras have gotten really phenomenal. Yeah. But would you recommend to them getting like a Sony a600 or any type of DSLR camera or mirrorless camera, or would a smartphone be sufficient?
I will say that I'm really glad when we kicked off Mr. Mobile and we were budgeting for stuff that I was encouraged to buy equipment, to buy really good equipment. Mm-hmm. I think I've produced some shots that I'm fairly proud of that would not be possible with a phone. Like if you want to be fancy, then you need one of those cameras still. These phones are good, but they're not good for the kind of product photography you need to be a tech YouTuber all the time. Mm-hmm. That said, I have done, I think, 2 car videos over the past 3 months. These are car reviews, my electric car coverage. And I didn't want to fly across the country with 18 pounds of equipment to support my big Sony camera. So I didn't. And I was like, I'm going to shoot this on a phone. I know I'm going to be in California. The sun's going to be out all the time. I'm never going to be in low light. And the LG G7, the Google Pixel 3 and 2, and the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. All of those had enough tools that I was able to get those videos done and really not break out a big camera much at all. That's incredible. And so, if you're building a YouTube channel based not on super crispy, awesome cinematography, but more on covering the product, I don't want to say in a more general way, but just covering the product, you can do so much with phones. You really, really, really can. So if you don't have the money, I would say, if you don't have the money for one of those $3,000 cameras, and you have to use a phone, there's no reason you can't be successful at all. It's not necessarily about that. It's about all the stuff we talked about earlier in the show, more so.
Okay. All right. Well, I actually lied. I have one last question.
Hit me with it. I'm not going. I'm on Hawaii time, man. I'm nowhere.
Did you have fun?
Oh man, did I have fun? You mean on the show?
Yeah.
Oh my God, of course. No, seriously, you're super easy to talk to, man. This was an awful lot of fun, and I really thank you for having me on. I certainly hope that some of what I said was useful. I tend to say an awful lot of words, and probably 5 times what I need to use. So hopefully somebody found it useful.
No, it was definitely very, very useful. Basically, I put myself in the shoes of the student, and you're the master, and I'm just I need to find out.
To be honest, man, I think actually that's probably my most important piece of advice that I didn't give. Like, you have to be a perpetual student. You have to keep being on yourself to improve, because I've done it. We've all done the thing where you fall into the rut of like, oh yeah, this is what I'm comfortable doing. This is good enough. And what do you know? The next day, 18 people blow past you because they're all still, hustling. I hate using that word, but they're all still like grinding to do the best work to try and get ahead. And then it's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm falling behind because I got lazy. You got to be a perpetual student, man. All of us. Yeah. So like, keep that attitude. Don't ever get comfortable.
Yeah, I know. For me, like when I started doing YouTube 2 years ago to this day, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I started doing tech, and then I was doing video game streams, and I was doing video game reviews. And I think this year has been the last couple of months of this year have been me the last year have been me rebranding. I'm like, I got the talk show, people enjoy it. I've got the video game reviews, companies love it. Mm-hmm. The hardest thing is just finding the audience, because it's so super oversaturated. So I'm constantly questioning myself, like, do I want to review everything that's coming out? Like Smash Brothers came out today, everybody's covering it. I'm like, I don't really want to cover it just for the sake that everyone else is. And I know a lot of people that tell me you need to do the review for that, like do it because everyone else is. I'm like,
sure. There's always a lot of tension between those two considerations, right? It's like, I don't want to do what everyone else is doing, but look, if that's where all the eyeballs are right now, like, Dude, I didn't want to do a Pokemon Go video when Pokemon Go came out, but I snagged a significant share of audience because that was the hugest thing that happened that year. And, I ended up having a lot of fun because that was a video outside my comfort zone. And so that in itself was fun. So I think those are some of the sacrifices you do have to make sometime, because it doesn't matter how good your content is. If not enough people discover you, you're never going to be able to do it. Right. So you have to. I will tell you, I don't particularly enjoy reviewing the iPhone. It's just not my kind of product. Like Apple's other products, the iPhone just isn't really my thing. But I have to cover it because that's where I get another share of audience from. So it's one of the things that makes this a job, and as rather than a pure avocation.
All right, so just stick around for a little bit longer. I'm going to go ahead and do the outro part of the show. All right, and so that wraps up this episode of the Mekel Kasanova Podcast. Thank everyone for watching. I want to thank Michael, Mr. Mobile, for coming on the show. And you'll be able to find this episode on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, coming soon to iHeartRadio. And we just signed a contract with Sirius FM to get the show starting next year, I believe it's January or February, one of those two. It'll be up on Sirius FM, so it's going to be amazing. And all the links for my guest, Mr. Mobile's links will be down in the description below this podcast, so definitely go and follow him. Tell him Mekel Kasanova sent you, and with that being said, we're signing out of this episode.
And stay mobile, my friends.
Did you enjoy this episode of the Kasanova Podcast? Well, I hope you did. And if you did, please make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. And let us know what we can improve upon, what you liked, what you didn't like, and all that good stuff. And just make sure you always have a good time. That being said, this is your boy Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii's favorite YouTuber. I am signing out, and I'll catch you on the next episode.